Hello again. Okay, this vlog, I want to talk about ghosts and phenomena that are related to ghosts. I think there's several phenomena that we all lump into the same pigeonhole as ghosts. I don't know if they're all the same thing, but they're all phenomena that are related, I guess. I think all phenomena is related, um, such as people talk about. Some people have near-death experiences. They go through the tunnel and they say they've seen ETs in the tunnel. So I think everything is related because everything, of course, is coming from the same one creative sentient energy. Ultimately, that's what I believe. My experience has led me to believe so far. So it does make sense that everything is connected. Anyway, so the first experience I had with ghosts was when I think I was 10, something like that. A friend of mine lived on a farm and they had this house, and I would go and visit him and we'd watch Doctor Who, which could be scary for a kid back then in the 1970s. And I remember going there and watching Doctor Who, and it was a bit late, so I decided to stay overnight. And he had a bunk bed that we slept in. We went to bed after watching Doctor Who, and he said as we were going to bed, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we have a ghost." I was like, "What? Ghost?" I'd never experienced anything like that. I remember. Oh no, he's just trying to frighten me, I thought. He said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't worry about it. Sometimes it opens and closes the door, but that's about it." He said, "Don't worry about it." So now, of course, I'm worrying about it. Because now he's mentioned it. I'm like 10. I'm like, ghost? What the hell? So we were lying there. And I think he'd fallen asleep when I was still a bit nervous thinking about this ghost, as you would be. And sure enough, creepily enough, and this house was only built in the 1950s or something. It's not like a really old house. I heard the stairs creak. Now, I thought, oh, maybe someone's coming up the stairs. The stairs were creaking. And then I heard the landing creak. I thought, oh. And then I thought maybe it's his dad playing a trick on me, trying to frighten me, having a joke. And then sure enough, I noticed his bedroom door handle came down, and then the doors opened just not too much, but opened away. And I was like, my eyes were wide open now, and I was looking, thinking, oh my God. And I was like frozen, again, like a rabbit caught in the headlights of a car, in bed, and I couldn't move. I tried to say my friend's name a couple of times, but he was fast asleep. And then, so I'm lying there. I think I was in the bottom bunk, and I was lying there, and then to my right is where the door is. I can see the door, and then in front of me is this like wardrobe, closed wardrobe, and it's one of those ones that have these little like latches that you lift up, the hook that hooks in. You lift up, and then you open the door. So you lift up the latches, and the door's open like this. So after the main bedroom door had opened, I was just sort of frozen, and then I noticed one of these latches on this cupboard lifted up, and it opened. And I was just completely freaked out. I couldn't do anything. But eventually, I managed to go back to sleep. I couldn't move a muscle. I was just like frozen, scared stiff, literally. And so that was my first experience. And the next day I said, "Oh, the door opened." He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Sometimes I get fed up with it opening the door, and I say, 'Would you shut the door?' And he said, and then the door shuts." So that's quite amusing. He was that used to it. That's what he said he used to do. He said he wasn't sure who it is, but he said there was a story going about that when the house was being built, one of the builders or someone had hung themselves from one of the rafters whilst it was being built. So that might be why there was a spirit hanging around. And that's what he said, but he wasn't really sure. But it's interesting that it was, wasn't doing any harm. It was just going through the motions. I don't know, but it still seemed to interact with him, which is interesting. Whereas talking about different phenomena that we lump in, because there seems to be ghosts that seem to be just reliving the past. Like there's a place, Cemetery Pales, it's outside of Woking, which is not a million miles from here. And I used to ride down there early morning on a moped, and people used to say that people had seen Roman soldiers walking down that road, but they were only from the waist up. And I thought, well, why is it from the waist up? And then I looked into it and found that the roads have been built on over the centuries, and so the road is much higher than it was back then. So actually, they were walking along the original road, which is why you could only see them from the waist up. So that is one kind of phenomena, isn't it, where it's like you're seeing a replay from the past. So the past, so for me, in my experience, the past, present, and future, they all exist all at once. You know, there's no separation. We all think we're separate from everything else, but the illusion is separation. The reality is connection, and everything's connected. And I see time as a whole. I don't know why I see it as a ball, but I see it as like a sphere, a whole. Time is a whole, and that is why you can see the future, and you can see the past, because they exist always. All of time exists as a whole. It's hard to get your mind around, but that's the way it is, I believe. And so this is one particular phenomena where you're seeing ghosts that are just basically, it's like you're seeing a rerun of what happened, and they're in their own time. They're not in your time, but for some reason there's a thinning of whatever it is, and you're able to see them. And there are other types of ghosts that interact with people who are not necessarily, or we don't know, I don't know whether they're living out there, what they're doing in the past, but they're certainly just interacting with people. I could tell a story about that someone told me, which I think. And there are ones like my friend's ghost in his house, where it's perhaps was going up to reliving hanging himself, perhaps, but then it also seemed to interact with him when he talked to it. So I don't know. Is it all the same thing? Maybe it is, but there seems to be slightly different phenomena going on. Of course, you've got poltergeists, which I think is something different again, but I think it's all, maybe it's right, it's all lumped into the same. I don't think it should be called ghost, but paranormal. I guess that's what the term is, isn't it? Paranormal events as slightly different phenomena, or is it? Anyway, so that was my first ghostly experience. So that was before I had my first experience and interaction with the UFO and the ETs, who are my family, in fact, family and friends. That was before that I experienced that, which is interesting. So it's not like, I think after my UFO experience, my mind and everything was cracked open. I think I can experience all sorts of other things after that. It was like a trigger for me to access more of my own mind and more of my own capability and senses beyond the five senses. I think that's what that did for me. That's why I had so many experiences after that. But that ghost was beforehand. But then, of course, everyone was experiencing that, including my friend. So the next ghost experience is when I was in Thailand. I did a lot of travelling. Obviously, I said before, trying to understand life, the universe, everything in my own life and experiences. And I had a girlfriend in Thailand, and she worked at university. They had this project, not this is really important, but she had this project down on the border with Malaysia. So it's the southern Thai-Malaysian border. And there's this project that they were doing eggs for recyclable rubbish. They're getting poor locals to gather up recyclable rubbish, and they were trading them in for eggs because they found that eggs were the most versatile thing to eat and was very good for the people. So, and it was a very successful project apparently. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside, but that's why I was down on the border. And I suppose actually we were put up in this person's house, this other Thai person's house, and this was, so I don't think there'd ever been a Western person, a white person, in this house that we were staying in whilst we were there. This is part of the story, I think. So I was in this house, there was several ladies and several men, and the men and the ladies all sleep in separate rooms. They're quite conservative, the Thais, actually, despite everything you hear about Thailand. Thai people are actually fairly conservative. And we all slept in separate rooms. And what happened was, I'd gone to bed, and I was sharing this room with another guy. But actually before, I was going to bed. So I'd gone to the shower. Now, the shower was just like it was a container of water. So it was like a concrete thing that was oblong and ends. And it was about, I don't know how long it was, about 6 foot or something. It was quite big. And it contained lots of water. And you had a bowl. And you got this bowl and you just scooped water over yourself to have a shower. And I was having a shower. I was scooping water over myself, and there was some soap on a dish. And the soap on the dish was like right at the other end of the container with this water and this trough of water. And I hadn't really noticed it. I just started cooling myself down because it was really hot. It's really hot there. And then I heard a ching 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 ching, like the soap dish moved, and I thought, oh, I must have splashed it with the thing, and then that made me notice the soap. So then I got the dish and I used the soap and washed myself off. And that was the first thing, because I don't think the water could have reached the dish. So I don't know. The ghost there was saying, "Hey, you need to use the soap." You dirty bugger. I don't know. So anyway, that was the first thing. I didn't think about it till afterwards because I just thought I splashed it. But I realised afterwards it was too far away, and I wasn't like throwing the water everywhere. I was just pouring it over myself. So I went to the bed. I was doing a meditate sleep. So I was lying down, the old meditate sleep thing. And as I was meditate sleeping, I suddenly heard this voice. And this voice was talking to me in Thai. It was a lady's voice. And I can speak a bit of Thai. You know, my Thai's not too bad, but I didn't really understand what she was saying. And again, as I was in meditating sleep, but I was coming out of it. As I was listening to this voice, I was coming out of it until I was like conscious, listening to this voice talking to me. So I opened my eyes, and I was like, "Oh gosh, there's someone else here." I recognised there must have been a spirit there. I said in my best Thai what my name was, who I was here with, and I was just where I was from. I was from England, UK, and I was just staying the night. So, because that was the feeling I got. Although I couldn't understand the language, exactly what she was saying, I understood that she was asking, "Who am I? What am I doing here?" So, I was saying, "Pomcher Trev, Samlap Enkrit," which is UK and Thai, and the Yunong one, the one I'm just staying one day, and who my friend was pulling, that kind of thing, in my broken Thai. And so that was it. And then I lay back down and I went to sleep. Now the next morning, I got up. Now the other guy I was sharing the room with, he never showed up. That was interesting. He was there for a little bit, and then he never came back. I don't know if he sensed something, or he didn't want to say anything, or whether I was just snoring loudly, which is quite possible. But he never showed up again. Now the Thais, interestingly, they have lots of folk stories and movies about ghosts, and ghosts are always negative in their culture. Ghosts are always trying to lure people to their deaths, so they can join them in the ghostly realm, and that kind of thing. So there's quite a lot of stigmatism regarding ghosts, and so if the guy had sensed anything there, he wouldn't have said anything. He'd have been too scared to say anything to anyone else. No one would want to know that there was a ghost because they'd be all frightened. So I don't know if that happened. I don't think I saw that guy again after that day. But I didn't ask him or anything. I didn't get the chance. But what happened in the morning anyway afterwards was at breakfast. And as you know, it's like 35 degrees in the morning down there. It was really hot. And I was sitting at like a breakfast table thing. As I was sitting there, I saw the corner of my eye, this black shadow came past. At the same time, just as the black shadow came past my eye, I felt this cold breeze on my knee, like something touched me. So I knew that was that spirit. So that was a confirmation for me that there is a spirit there, and that was her saying hello again in the morning after, or making contact. It's interesting, the corner of the eye, because I know that, I don't know if anyone knows, but at the corner of your eyes you have these different cones, I think they're called, in the periphery of your vision. So I've noticed, like at night, if there's a little light in the sky, let's say a little star or something, if you don't look directly at it, if you look slightly to the left, you can see it, but when you try to look at it, you can't see it. It's because you have these cones in the sides and the periphery of your vision where you get a slightly wider spectrum of light. And that's where that shadow is. And that's why people think they see things out of the corner of their eye. That's because I think physically you have these cones which allow you to see into the wider spectrum. People can say I'm right or wrong in the comments, but I believe that is the case. And that's probably why I saw this shadow, and it was just in the periphery of my vision, and I didn't see it, but then I felt the cool breeze, and it was cool. And like I say, it's 35 degrees in the morning, and so you don't feel cool breezes. And this was inside the house. So that was the second ghostly experience I wanted to mention. And the third one is back in the monastery. And it was back at those lunch times when I was having my nap, and I was lying down on my side, and then I heard someone say my name. Oh no, did it say my name? No, it just said, I heard this voice and it said, "Hello, mate," like that. And it was in a friendly way, not in a creepy way. It sounds a bit creepy, but he said, I didn't take it as that. He just said, "Hello, mate." And but as I said it, I realised that it was through my own voice. I was actually saying it, using my voice box, and I felt my body sort of hunching up, like this person was old and was hunched. And I realised that I was being taken over by this spirit of this person. There was a person, it's now a spirit. Anyway, that was really, I found that really creepy. I wasn't scared, but I just found it really, really creepy. And I somehow managed to sort of push it out of my body. And then I sat up and I said out loud, "I don't mind if anyone's here, if you're friendly, but please don't do that. Please don't take over my body. I just didn't like it at all." And that's true. I didn't like it. So that was the third one. There might have been some more, but those are the ones that stick out in my mind, and were very strong in my memory still. So I hope you enjoy that, and I'll see you in the next vlog. Hi. I'm recording this after the previous stories that I was telling, because at the beginning of the video I realised when I was editing this video that I said I had a story to tell about a ghost. It was quite interesting, and I didn't add it, so now I'm adding it in at the end. And it was when was it? So 2006, something like that, some late in 2006 or 7. And I've been to the monastery. I'd left, I come out, and I was staying with a friend in Swindon, and I had this job, agency job, working in this insurance building. We were sorting post or something, and there's other agency workers working in there. And there was a few people in there that were ex-RAF, who were very nice people that I met there. And there's one guy who was an older guy. And I'd been chatting to one or two of them about being a monk, you know, and experiences, and got onto ghosts and stuff like that. And then this older guy was listening, and he didn't say anything. But then when I was sort of alone, he came and talked to me. He said, "I want to tell you a story about a ghost." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Yeah, I'd be interested to hear." And he said, it was when he was in the RAF. He didn't really specify when, but he's been retired for some time now. He just worked in this job as a bit of extra money in his retirement. You know, he's in his 60s easily. So this was probably back in the 60s or something like that, maybe early 70s, I imagine. Don't know exactly. Anyway, he said he was working, he didn't say what field, I don't know whether it was in Wootton Bassett, because Wootton Bassett was just there where we were working, and that's like the RAF place. You see planes coming in and out all the time. Anyway, he said he was on guard duty on a camp, and there's a perimeter fence, and he was working like the perimeter, and he was going up to a perimeter fence, and he saw this guy standing there, and he thought, "Oh, there's someone else, you know, guarding." You know, he went up to have a chat with him. He had a chat with this guy. He talked to him for about 5-10 minutes, and the guy asked him to light a cigarette for him, and he got out this old roll. He rolled up a cigarette, and he lit a cigarette for him. They carried on chatting for a while. He said, and at some point, he said he turned around just for a second to have a look. He thought he had something. He turned back, and the guy had gone. And he said this was at the perimeter fence, a really tall fence with barbed wire at the top. There's no way he could have gone away, and it's like on a flat piece of land either side, because like an airfield. So he said there was nowhere for him to go, and he just disappeared. Just a split second, he turned, came back, he was gone. He said, and then when I thought about it, he said he was like a bit freaked out. He thought, where's he gone? Then he realised that this guy was in 1940s RAF gear. He said, when I thought back, I thought, oh, he's wearing like the coat and the hat and everything. It wasn't. It was of a different era, and he realised it was the 1940s. So I thought that's really interesting, because this guy wasn't given to flight or fancy or telling stories. He wanted to tell me a story like away from the others. He didn't want any sort of publicity around it. He just wanted to share his story, and someone who would believe him, because obviously I was telling stories about ghosts before, I suppose. So it's really interesting that he interacted with him, and he looked real, this guy. He talked to him for some time, some minutes. He even lit this ghost cigarette. So it's not just interacting verbally, but he physically interacted in lighting a cigarette. And that's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard something like that before. I thought that was really interesting. And that's the story I want to tell about phenomena, and about ghosts sometimes being like just reliving their past. I mean, the guy was obviously there at the perimeter fence, but the two people, like the past and the present, were for some reason at that point together in the same space, and almost physically. And part of it was physical because he lit his cigarette. So isn't that interesting? So I think that is an indication of how past, present, and future are all one and together. And he kind of proved that in that one little story, in a way, that for some reason all those things came together. Fascinating. Anyway, I thought you'd really like that. So I've stuck it in now. I deliberately stopped my editing to record this, and I'll stick this in. Thank you.